Hi, everyone. My name is Mrs. Sherrie Wilkins, and today I am so excited to be reading a story to you. This story is called The Legend of the Candy Cane and is what we call a realistic fiction. So it's not necessarily true, but the characters and the events in the story may be realistic or lead to some part of historical events. So this is called The Legend of the Candy Cane, and it's an inspirational story of one of our favorite Christmas candies. Are you ready? Good. The Legend of the Candy Cane, the inspirational story of our favorite Christmas candy, is written by Lori Walburg and illustrated by Richard Cowdrey. The pictures in here are so beautiful. One evening, in the depths of a November, a stranger rode into town. He stopped his horse in front of a lonely storefront. The windows were boarded shut, and the door was locked fast. But the man looked at it and smiled. It will do. All through the short gray days and the long dark November nights, the man worked. The townspeople could hear the faint pam pam, pam pam, pam pam of his hammer and the snish snish, snish snish, snish snish of his saw. They could smell the sweet, clean scent of new lumber and the deep, oily smell of new paint. But no one knew who the man was or what he was doing. The mayor hoped the man was a doctor to heal his illness. The young wives hoped he was a tailor to make beautiful dresses. The farmers, they hoped he was a trader to exchange their grain for goods. But the children had the strongest and deepest wish of all, a wish they did not tell their parents, a deep, quiet, secret wish that none of them said out loud. No one spoke to the man. No one asked if he needed help. They just waited and watched and wondered and wished. But one small girl watched and wondered, waited and wished longer than she could stand. And one snowy day, she knocked at the stranger's door. "Hello," she said. "My name is Lucy. Do you need some help?" The man smiled warmly and nodded. Then he opened the door and Lucy stepped inside. A long counter ran down the side of the room. Bare shelves filled the opposite walls. In the back were dozens and dozens of barrels and crates. "Could you help me unpack?" the man asked. So do you have a prediction? What do you think are inside of the barrels and the crates in the man's workshop? Do you have a prediction? A prediction is an educated guess. What do you think is going to happen? Or what do you think is inside of his barrels and boxes? Let's see. Lucy's heart sank at the sight of the boxes. What if they were only barrels of nails and bags of flowers? But she removed her dripping boots and hung her coat on a peg. One stocking feet, she crossed the rough. On stocking feet, that means she wasn't wearing any shoes. On stocking feet, she crossed the rough wooden door and knelt beside a crate. "Please, open it," urged the man. Slowly, Lucy put her hand into the box and pulled out an object wrapped in tissue. Round and heavy, it almost slipped through her fingers. Lucy trembled a little as she unwrapped it. It was a glass jar. Lucy gave the man a puzzled look. "Go on," his nod said. So she unpacked another glass jar, and another, and another, and another, until she was completely surrounded by jars of all shapes and sizes, tall and thin, round and squat, jars with lids and jars without. "Now," the man said, "for something to put inside." And he pulled over a huge crate stamped with a strange word. Do you see the strange word on the box there, down there? The strange word says confections. As Lucy unpacked, her eyes lit up. It was candy, her favorite candy, gumdrops. Try some, said the man. She popped one in her mouth. Now she could hardly unwrap fast enough. Peppermint sticks and taffy, lollipops and chewing gum. Wide-eyed, she looked at the man. We wished, said Lucy. Yes, I know, said the man. And here it is. Welcome to Sonneman's Candy Store. I am John Sonneman. So the kids had the wish for a candy store. So now Lucy is actually discovering what's inside the boxes and barrels. What was inside? Yep, tons of candy. Soon the small store was filled with candies, gleaming in their glass jars. Raspberry suckers, tiny lemon drops, brightly colored jawbreakers, and long tangles of licorice. Pink and white and peppermints for church and butterscotch balls for company. Then, in the very last package, in the very last crate, was a candy Lucy had never ever seen before. A red and white striped candy stick with a crook on the end. What is this? Lucy asked. I bet we all know what that one is. This time of year, we all start to see these everywhere, right? But this was Lucy's first time ever seeing this. This, Mr. Sonneman explained, is a candy cane. It is a very special Christmas candy. Why? Asked Lucy. Tell me, Mr. Sonneman said. What letter does it look like? Lucy took the candy and turned it in her hand. J, she said. Yes, Mr. Sonneman smiled. J is for Jesus, and he was born on Christmas Day. Now, turn it over. What does it remind you of? Lucy turned the candy in her hand. She peered down intently. I know, she said finally. It looks like a shepherd's staff. Who were the first to find out about Jesus' birth? Mr. Sonneman asked. Shepherds in the field, Lucy answered, watching over their flocks by night. So if you turn the candy cane upside down, it looks like a J. And if you hold it right side up, it looks like a shepherd's staff. So there's a shepherd, and there's his staff, what he's holding in his hand. Do you see that? But Mr. Sonneman, what are the stripes for? Lucy asked. The man's eyes grew sad. The prophet Isaiah said, by his stripes we were healed. Before he died on the cross, Jesus was whipped. He bled terribly. The red reminds us of his suffering in his blood. But then, Mr. Sonneman continued, the candy is white as well. When we give our lives to Jesus, his blood washes away our sins, making us white and pure as snow. That, he said, is the story of the candy cane. Is it a secret? Lucy asked. Mr. Sonneman looked at her for quite a long time. It's a story that needs to be told, he said. Will you help me to share it? It was now the depths of December. The town was whipped round by blizzard winds. For days, the sun hid itself. But every morning, Mr. Sonneman and Lucy ventured out. They wore heavy woolen coats and bright hand-knit scarves. In their stiff mittened fingers, they each held a bag. They went to every house in the little town. They traveled to every farm in the country. In every home, they told the story. They left a small gift, and they gave an invitation. What do you think the small gift was? On the afternoon of Christmas Eve, the sun finally broke through the clouds, and Sonneman's candy store officially opened. The mayor came feeling better than he'd felt in days. The young wives came dressed in beautiful smiles. The farmers came eager to trade grain for Christmas gifts. The children ran in dizzy circles. Yes, their wish had come true. Yes, they had come to share in the opening of the candy store, but they shared something more, something bigger, something better. On that Christmas Eve, they shared the story of the candy cane. They told the miracle of Christ's birth, the misery of his death, and the mercy of his love. And that is the legend of a candy cane. So remember I told you that the legend of a candy cane is what we call a realistic fiction. That means that the characters are human, of course, they're realistic people, and some of the events may be true. But here are a few details that maybe you didn't know were actually true about the candy cane. So the tradition of the candy cane was actually born over 350 years ago. And they used white sugar sticks for baby pacifiers. Now, I know my baby Lily Jean would love to have a white sugar stick as her passy. So that's how it started originally in Europe, in Germany. So they would actually use those to help the baby stop crying. Isn't that kind of silly, right? So eventually, these candy canes began to spread across Europe. And in Northern Europe, the sugar canes were decorated with sugar roses to brighten up the homes during Christmas times. So that's where we get the red from. Then in the 1800s, a German-Swedish immigrant actually came to the United States in Ohio. And guess what he decorated his house with around Christmas time? Take a guess. You guessed it, you guessed the candy cane. So he dressed up his home with sugar canes and a spruce tree with ornaments. And that's how the tradition is said to have come to America. The red stripe on the candy cane was added at the turn of the century because they didn't always have peppermint like we have today. But some people now even get blue candy canes. I like the blue ones. What about you? The blue ones are so good. They're blue raspberry. So some of the sources say that some people like to say it represents of Christ's love, but it's a legend. And a legend is something that's told over and over and over and over and believed to be true. So no matter what it is that your family recognizes during Christmas, everybody's traditions are the same. And I bet that we all love the candy cane. I know I do. So thank you so much for listening to the story, The Legend of the Candy Cane. And I love you all, and I wish you a Merry Christmas.